he stole all of my stuff. We always do that.
We can make some up if you need some more talking points. I'll give you.
Oh, I'm really good at making things up. How you doing?
Good.
So we just got back from Paris.
We did.
And you were kind enough to host a really lovely gathering at this beautiful hotel. And I think you had just wrapped up lunch with your kids. And I think it's relevant as a cultural sort of learning to share with our friends here about that experience.
I appreciate the setup. First of all, thank you so much for having me, and welcome to Arkansas. We are honored and excited to have all of you here and host. I'm a little nervous because I think I may be the only person in the room who is not an engineer. So Congressman Westerman is such a rock star for our state, does an incredible job. And I like to joke that just because he talks slow, he certainly doesn't think slow. So don't let the thick accents that we have fool you, but he is such a active and forceful member, and we are very lucky to have him representing us in Washington. But welcome to Arkansas, and we are so glad you're here. Our trip in Paris, we were there for the Paris Air Show, and I have to say it didn't start off exactly how we had hoped. We had been on the ground for a couple of hours. My husband Brian is here with me tonight, and we took our 3 kids with us who are 11, 9, and 8, and it was their first time in Europe, first time in Paris. And I had a couple of hours before I was headed off to start events and meetings. And I thought, you know what better way to introduce our kids to Paris than to sit outside this great little Parisian cafe and just kind of take in the city for a minute. And so we go and we sit down, and I look up directly across the street about 25 yards from where we sit was X-rated store after X-rated store after X-rated store. And I think, oh, great, what an experience. And I think, I kind of elbow my husband, and he acknowledges what I see, and we're hopeful that maybe our kids won't notice any of the shops across the street. Unfortunately, a few minutes into our lunch, my 8-year-old popped up and goes, "Look, Mommy, that's the best store ever. They have toys and DVDs. Can we go there after lunch?" And we quickly made up excuses of why we were in a big rush and wouldn't be able to start off there. But thankfully, everything from that point moving forward at our time at the Paris Air Show went tremendously well, and we had great meetings and really enjoyed our time, and look forward to growing the aerospace and aviation business and opportunities here in the state of Arkansas.
So back to kids. So your landmark legislation, as soon as you came to the office, was the LEARNS Act, if I'm not mistaken. Prior to that, the state was ranked 48th? 48th in teacher pay. Share with the group sort of the outcome of all that work that you guys did.
I think one of the things that I recognize, and certainly our team knew coming in, the biggest thing that we could do to really transform our state for the long term was to focus on education. Everything else builds from there. If we don't have a solid foundation, then all the other things we want to see happen, and workforce development, economic development, quality of life, they don't go anywhere if we don't really have a solid basis in education. And that was certainly not what was happening here in the state of Arkansas. And we determined very quickly and spent a significant amount of time over the course of the 2 years on the campaign working, building, and developing a plan that we thought would move Arkansas to the top. The good news is we had no place to go but up. The bad news is we had no place to go but up. Consistently, Arkansas ranks at the very bottom in all of the categories in education that you typically want to be at the top, including teacher pay. We were 48th in the country in teacher pay until we passed this piece of legislation, and overnight we're now in the top 5. If you adjust for cost of living, we're number 1 in the country. So I hate to break it to you, if you live in another state, we are recruiting your teachers to come here because we want the best and the brightest educating our students. But we also knew that literacy was a huge, huge determining factor for the lifetime success of any student. If a child is not reading by that critical moment of 3rd grade, it is truly make or break. They say that if a student can't read at or above grade level by the time they're in 3rd grade, that there is a 70% chance that they'll have a lifetime in poverty. And that is, to me, such a startling statistic. And it's also a huge reminder of a simple place that we can focus to really change the trajectory of a student's long-term success. So we aggressively leaned into making significant investment in a way that we haven't in education in decades in the state of Arkansas, focusing on early childhood education, literacy immersion, reading coaches, tutoring, and focused grants that will help students not only get a better start for the younger students, but help a lot of those who have already fallen behind catch up. Right now in the state of Arkansas, only about 35% of our 3rd graders are reading at or above a 3rd grade reading level. I know you're probably like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. I hate to tell you, but the national average is only 41%. So while Arkansas is at the bottom, we're not too far behind the rest of the country because this is an area that has been so long ignored. And we want to be the leaders in this space. And so we're really focusing on some of the things that we know can make a huge difference for the students in our state, because we know that that is the best way to really transform, I think, our state as a whole is focusing on education, and we passed that historic landmark legislation. I'm really proud of what I think we're going to be able to do over the next several decades for students here in the state of Arkansas.
Amazing. You know, many folks are surprised when they hear the largest export out of the state is not chickens, it's aerospace. And as part of your mission being overseas, you got a chance to go visit a lot of countries and maybe share with the group some of the insights you got and perhaps Arkansas's position as it relates to some of the broader geopolitical things that are going on.
Sure. I think that people are typically surprised to learn that our #1 export here in the state of Arkansas is in the aerospace field, about a $1 billion export industry for our state. Something we're very proud of, but we're not satisfied just staying there. We want to see that grow. And one of the biggest things that I've heard, whether you're in aerospace or aviation or frankly any type of industry, no matter what part of the state that you're in, the #1 thing that we hear from every single person, every business leader, every community leader, is that they can't find the skilled, qualified workers that they need. So that's been one of the big priorities for us, is focusing on building that workforce. We know that we can't get a company to either come here or expand if they already exist in Arkansas if we can't provide the workforce that they need. So that was a big piece of our education program as well. One of the first things I did was establish what we call the workforce cabinet. One of the first weeks I was in office and leading up to during the transition, there are 7 different agencies within state government that all have a workforce component. And so I started talking to them and I asked, how often do you all meet? And I was shocked to find out that they had never sat down at the same table. They never met. So we quickly created what we called the workforce cabinet, bringing every one of our agency heads together and forcing them to focus on the regular basis on how we meet this growing demand of workforce. And we also created a position called the Chief Workforce Officer. I was smart enough to convince somebody that came from the private sector that has spent his life building and training workers so that we can take a whole of government approach into how we deal with that. I think it's going to be one of the things that differentiates Arkansas from a lot of other places that are begging business to come and to expand there, because we're going to be able to deliver the workers that they need. And I think that will be one of our biggest selling points long term, is being able to deliver on that urgent need that so many businesses and companies have.
The war in Ukraine. Arkansas is having a real impact in what's going on. I think it'd be great for folks to hear about what Arkansas's contribution is right now.
You know, a lot of people don't realize in Camden, Arkansas is where a lot of the majority of the missiles that are being used to fight the war in Ukraine are made right here in Arkansas. So much so that in the small town of Camden, Arkansas, kids that are being born right now are regularly being named Javelin and Striker. So in a couple years, I think we're going to have a pretty awkward moment in kindergarten when there are 6 kids named Javelin sitting next to each other. That may make it a little hard for the teacher, but it is a growing industry. We have a great presence in that space, and we want to continue building on that. They have an incredible sign in the Lockheed facility that says the coolest thing made in Arkansas. And while I'm not picking one item over another, just to be clear, I think we have a lot of amazing things made in the state. I don't want to get myself in trouble. It is a pretty remarkable thing that's being made right here in the state of Arkansas, and something we want to continue to be able to do and grow from here.
So you flew up from Little Rock, if I'm not mistaken. How'd you do that?
On the state plane, King Air Beechcraft. So
Beechcraft.
Yeah. Sorry. Cyrus, don't get me in trouble. I'm more than happy to fly on any of your aircrafts at any time. If
the
you
good
need
folks
me
from
to,
Embraer
so.
and Gulfstream wanted to surprise you with a new airplane tonight. Yeah. It's at the FBO, ready to go. You can pick whichever one you like, and Stripes as well.
I mean, there's no reason to single anybody out. We should just take them all, Cyrus. You know, we got to travel a lot.
I like,
so.
you know, what is like the right number of planes to own? It's N+1, and being whatever you own now. So.
I always thought it was somebody else's. Is the
What's that? Yeah. So you have spent pretty much your whole life in and around the political world.
For better or worse, yes.
So, you know, considering the state of the union, and actually you were selected to be the GOP response to the State of the Union speech, your thoughts on how this country comes back together, considering all the divisive challenges that we've got?
You know, I think it's a difficult mission, to say the least. The country is certainly very divided, and I think we've seen that grow. I think one of the best things that we can do are focus on issues that build people up instead of tear people down. That's why we have spent so much of our time focusing on things that, frankly, I think are great equalizers. There's nothing that can help people have greater opportunity and to, I think, erase a lot of the division than everyone having access to a quality education, everyone having the ability to get outside and enjoy the beautiful outdoors, focusing on things like economic development that give people a leg up. So finding things that actually lift people up, bring people together, and that are unifying forces. Those are the things that we've tried to really focus on specifically here in Arkansas. And hopefully others will see that and maybe follow our lead. But you know, there's no denying we have a very divided country. You know, I think, and it's not always popular to say, and I think it's a great tool and I use it regularly. I think social media is one of the worst things that has probably in many ways happened in our country over the last decade, because it has divided and created bigger divisions, and we're seeing that impact on our young people in a way that we have never seen something so quickly change, I think, the dynamics of interaction between individuals. We're watching anxiety, depression, suicide rates skyrocket among teens right now, in large part driven by social media. And like I said, it can be an amazing tool. It can be a great way to share information. I also think that it can be a very dangerous thing. It's something that dehumanizes people. You know, I often kind of joke in a way that one, never read the comments. That's just life advice I can give you. Your comments probably aren't quite as negative as some of the ones in my feed, hopefully. However, you know, you look at something where somebody says you're the nastiest person and worst person to ever walk the face of the planet, and you look over at the picture and you think it's going to be this angry, you know, hateful profile picture, and you look at it and it's this sweet grandmother surrounded by her 16 grandkids. And I'm thinking, this woman would never in a million years come up and say that to me in public. But on that platform, there is a license to go after. And I think it has really changed the dynamic of our country. One of the pieces of legislation that was pretty controversial that we passed this session was requiring parental permission for anyone under the age of 18 opening a new account to have permission from their parents, a new social media account. very controversial. However, I think that steps like that help us protect our kids for the long term and help us, I think, maybe take away some of the divisive nature that I think is being created online.
Earlier, we had a chance to kind of brief on this really exciting, hopeful future around mobility, much of it being electric. And it's many folks are surprised to hear that Arkansas has actually a pretty significant role in powering this new future. It'd be great to hear a little bit about what's going on in southern Arkansas.
You know, it helps when you have a couple of really, really small companies like Walmart that are willing to test some pilot programs. One guy got that joke, so he's my new favorite person in the room. But you know, having a company like that and people who are so forward-leaning and so innovative has, I think, given us a great opportunity to explore in ways and take bigger steps when it comes to future mobility. Walmart has a long-running history with aviation, and their willingness to try out new things and open that market up, I think, has really changed the dynamic and certainly the conversation and put us on a playing field that's competitive, frankly, with anyone in the country. And it's an exciting time, and I think it's a very interesting time. I'm not quite ready to get on an unmanned aircraft myself, but I'm excited for the things that are happening and the people who are stepping out and doing some of those new and innovative things right here in Arkansas.
So Arkansas is currently ranked, it's actually tied between 1 and 2 as the number one drone readiness state in America. And a lot of that comes from the work that Walmart's done. Lithium. Lithium is a big opportunity for the state in terms of the lithium brine sort of fields down in southern Arkansas. How do you see that sort of playing out into the broader economy for the future?
Well, I hope it plays out in a really big way. There are some of the largest lithium deposits anywhere in the world right here in Arkansas. We know that bromine is a huge natural resource. You should ask Congressman Westerman. One, it's in his district. Two, this is his area of specialty beyond mine. But one of the largest deposits of bromine as well. I think the only other place that beats us maybe the Dead Sea. And so it's a huge market for us. The lithium piece is new, and there's a lot of exploration around that. If it is as good as some people think it is, we will be, I think, on the forefront of being able to really invest in a lot of the electric vehicles, and that market will only grow significantly over the course of the next several years. But we're still kind of in the testing and assessment phase. But if everything is as good as the initial reads and the initial kind of assessment is, then it'll be a huge market and a really big opportunity for the state of Arkansas. I just really hope it happens here in the next couple years, because that would be really exciting for us to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, Exxon, I don't know if they meant for it to come out, but a pretty significant story just came out that they've been quietly buying up most of the leaseholds in southern Arkansas around taking advantage of the lithium brine opportunity. For those that don't know what the opportunity is, there's a bunch of liquid under the ground. Inside of that liquid is lithium. They pump the liquid out, they can pull the lithium out, stick the water back in, and not have to drill any big old mines in the ground. What are you most hopeful about?
Oh, that's a tough one. We went from lithium to like dreams and aspirations. That's quite the jump. But, you know, I think one of the things I'm most hopeful about is that I still get to wake up every day in the greatest country that the world has ever known. You know, if you look at if you watch the news and you look at the paper, it's easy to get discouraged and think, oh my gosh, is the world coming to an end? Because it's just so filled with negativity and all the bad things that are happening all over the country. But when you go out and you spend time talking to people all over the state, like I get the opportunity to do, frankly, all over the country, you're reminded of what a remarkable place the United States is. You get to see individual people start with nothing and grow into the biggest business on the face of the planet in places like Arkansas. You get to see kids who had zero opportunity, zero reason to live a life of success, but because they were born in America, because they have access to things like a quality education, they get to do anything they want to do. One of the greatest parts of being an American is that it doesn't matter where you start, you get to decide where you will finish. And that should give, I think, each one of us hope as we go into every single day, is knowing that no matter what negative things, what difficult challenges we have to overcome as a country, we're still the greatest country that has ever existed. And that's something that gives us hope, and certainly something that I'm very proud that I get to play a very small part in.
Maybe we'll open up for a question or two to the crowd.
It's always the way you end your career, but sure.
All right. Any questions? We got a mic in the back.
Yeah, I got a microphone over here. Questions? Hey, look, why don't we start here?
Governor, thank you so very much, and it's such a real pleasure to not only be in this great town, but to have the opportunity to share this time with all of the folks, my colleagues that are here, and certainly a real pleasure to have the opportunity to be with you as well. You spoke about education, and this group, many of folks in this group know that that's my real passion. I'm from South Carolina, so I understand very well about being on the bottom when it comes to education. So very quickly, you spoke about a couple of things that you've put into place to help to boost education. Can you speak a little bit more on the academic side? What did the team help to bring to you to say, we need to do these kinds of things that is so very different, I think, that we need to do from yesteryear, so we can speed up the pace at which we can get our youngsters moving forward? And then the next question would be, where do you see aviation? What is the uniqueness of that really fits into what's going on with your administration in the state right now? Thanks so very much.
Sure. Well, I certainly share the passion for education. I think for me, and one of the things that we're doing and that I feel like our state and our country have to move towards is being a little bit more innovative when it comes to that, and focusing on things that are very industry driven. What works and what is desperately needed in Bentonville may not be the same thing that we need to focus on in Little Rock or Jonesboro, El Dorado, and different parts of our state. So one of the things we're trying to open up is we created a career dual diploma option so that students in high school, starting at an earlier standpoint, both 8th and 9th grade, can get on a career track at a much quicker pace. For so long, we kind of pushed, frankly, a lie to students all over the country that if you didn't go to a 4-year university, that you were somehow less than. And nothing could be further from the truth. There is such a high demand for students going immediately into the workforce, either from high school or going into a trade or vocational program right after and getting some additional training before going into the workforce. But those are the types of things I think we have to look at. So we've started programs matching up with business that is in their own backyard, helping these high school students get certification while they're in high school so they can immediately graduate and go directly into the workforce. There are a lot of kids who don't need to go to a 4-year university. That doesn't mean we shouldn't put a lot of kids into those. Certainly still a demand for that. There are a lot of things in trade and vocational work that, frankly, we have ignored for a long time and have a huge shortage of in the country. So if we can help encourage students, one of the examples and ways that we kind of use to describe it is that you have to have essentially an interstate, and there are a lot of different exit ramps and on-ramps. Just because a student goes directly into the workforce after high school, they get that certification, they should be able to build on that and come back on. And so looking for those opportunities and making sure that kids understand the variety of ways that they can be successful, I think is really important. Some of that is just messaging, and some of it is policy driven, opening up some of those opportunities. But one of the things we do here in the state that was started before I got here, so I'm not taking credit, but it's a thing that I think is been very impactful and very successful is they have what they call signing day. It's very similar to a student signing with a major university to play sports, but they are actually signing with companies to go into the workforce upon graduation. And we have seen a tremendous amount of excitement, enthusiasm for these students who are getting celebrated as much as the kids that are going to play baseball, football, and tennis are these individuals who are going straight into the workforce, and their parents come and they celebrate, and it is a special thing to watch. So I think looking for those opportunities, those kind of flexibility moments, and the innovation in how we look at education, and ultimately the question we have to ask isn't just what does a student know, but what is a student capable of doing when they graduate? And if they aren't capable of doing something that allows them to join the workforce, then we've done it wrong. And so kind of taking a step back and being able to help put those kids on long-term success paths, that's what we're looking at and trying to focus on when it comes to education. Sorry, I know that's a really long answer to your very short question. But
Great, let's maybe take one more question. Tyson, I know you got a question.
much easier crowd than I'm used to. So.
There you go.
One moment.
Right here.
Hi, and thank you again so much for being here. I love your approach about being proactive versus reactive to these situations, and I kind of want to tag along with the education piece. My colleague Ian and I here lead the Young Professionals Council for the National Business Aviation Association, and that's one of the big initiatives that we're working towards. So I would love any advice you can give us, because you kind of hit on it a little bit in what we're trying to do, but right now we're kind of reaching out to school counselors here and there and whoever we can get to let them know about these jobs in aviation, because no matter what you want to do, no matter what your skill talent is, there's a place for you in business aviation, and let them know like you said, it's not always a university or a degree that's going to get you there. Sometimes it's your skill set, sometimes it's just your passion, sometimes it's just who they are and their drive. So I would love any advice that you can give to us on how we can reach these young professionals and these students in exposing them to the opportunities in business aviation.
Sure. I think that, sometimes the message gets lost because, we pitch things to high school students. Like, if you take this job, you can have health insurance and a 401k, and that just goes directly over the head. If you say, you know what, you could own your own home, you could have a boat, you know what, you could probably have season tickets to the Razorbacks, they're like, yes, I'm in on that. And so putting things in a way that actually makes sense and draws them in, I think is a big piece of the puzzle that we have missed out on. And we try to sell something that frankly they're not interested in. But talking to them about, you know what, you're really great at building. Let me show you something that you right now are capable of building, and take them and let them see it and say, you know what, you could be part of something, whether it's building a plane or working on the mechanics of it or finishing out the inside interior. That's something that is a big industry for us here in Arkansas. Showing them, here's something that you can do, that you can be proud of, and here's what your life can look like in a way that makes sense to them, I think is an approach that we have not really leaned into as much, but also celebrating those students. We have seen so much of a shift when we're doing these big signing ceremonies in kids that are then proud of the work that they're going to do and proud of the industry that they get to be part of, because they see that as a success story. And so helping, I think, a lot of students see all the various pathways as success stories makes a difference. When we tell everybody this is the only way that you get to be somebody, then we are crushing the dreams of so many people whose path isn't that. And so opening that conversation up and really talking to them in a way that makes sense and matters to them, I think can make a huge difference. It's not going to change everybody, but I certainly think it can make an impact.
Thank you so much.
So maybe I'll wrap it up with this one factoid. If you were to take the average location of every American and plot it on a map, it's about 40 miles north of here. And it's almost appropriate to have a heart sitting around the beating heart of America here in Bentonville, Arkansas. where the greatest entrepreneur story that our country's ever seen happened here. And hopefully it's the beginning of many great stories of great Americans. And Governor, thank you for your commitment to help this great state, to the heartland, and to America. And we look forward to you spending more time with all our guests here. Thanks so much.
Thank y'all, and enjoy Arkansas.